I've collected art for many years. And when I moved, for over 30 years. So when I moved here, which is the smallest place, well, actually, it's one of the smallest places I've ever lived in, I had to find something to do with my art. So when you walk into my house, it really looks like an art gallery. There, I have pictures all on the floor.
Well, but it's cheering, and then when it's all there, you can just rearrange as you go along. And
yeah. And I said, at least when I look around, I can see where my money went. So how many do we have tonight?
So tonight, Daisy, we have, of course, myself, and we have Dory with us. We have Fatima, we have Nancy, we have Virginia, and we have Karen with us.
Okay, so we have what, 5 people?
Yeah, yes. So we took a moment and talked among ourselves about why we were wanting to take the class, and we gave some definitions to talk about what self-esteem means. So we were looking at your document, and we had just started to talk about how self-esteem impacts our life. So if you go back and talk some more and fill in some of that, we would love to hear what you have to say. Everybody, thank you, Daisy, for coming. Yay!
Hi, everybody.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, I was waiting to get the email from Jot giving me the login information.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Can you all see me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so what did you all say, self-esteem? What is self-esteem? Were there any questions in particular about self-esteem?
Earlier, Nancy had said that self-esteem, if it's a high self-esteem, you think well and things go well for yourself. If you have low self-esteem, you feel maybe a little fearful and aren't willing to take risks.
Yeah. And self-esteem, it really is, as I said on the handout, it's a state of mind. It's really how you see yourself. And I have been doing sessions on self-esteem for a very long time. As a matter of fact, I've been volunteering with Children First, I think since 2007, doing with the Career Readiness program for women. And I've been doing self-esteem training or training in personal development, I say, for over 30 years. And one of the things about self-esteem is that, and I read this years ago and it's still true today, I would say that 2/3 of the adult population, period, have problems with their self-esteem. And that seems to be high, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that I've noticed is that the level of self-esteem has absolutely nothing to do with how much money you have or how successful you are at doing what you do. It still doesn't mean that you are not plagued with some degree of self-esteem. So when does self-esteem start forming?
Daisy, just as an FYI for you, we are recording the session. I should have told you that as soon as we are recording it so that any of the ladies that want to join us later can catch up. And so the other ladies have chosen to keep their video private. So
got it. And mute. Okay. So I can just.
They are here, but they are. That's why the video is down. And and then everybody, you know, we've all been doing Zoom and online meetings for so long. We know that we keep ourselves muted until we talk. So
So I would just talk.
Yeah. So Nancy, it looks like
I'm just talk. Okay. All right.
Miss Daisy.
Hi.
Hi. This is Dory. I just wanted to say that the answer to your question would. In my opinion, as an infant toddler specialist, it should begin at home in the early stages and then continue on in the classroom.
It does. It begins in early childhood. it begins with the child, based on what you've been told, based on how you're treated, and it keeps going. So it is about valuing and appreciating yourself. And it's important because self-esteem impacts everything you do. It impacts everything you do. It impacts everything you will attempt to do. It impacts how you treat people, whether you bully people, whether you let people take advantage of you. It has impacted your choice of friends, whether you walk away or whether you stay. It impacts every decision that you make. Everything about you has a lot to do with your appreciation of yourself. And that's why even in my latest book, which is Zeke 50 Nuggets, which I sent LaShante a copy because she was the one that showed up last week, I talk about one of the nuggets is the importance of valuing and appreciating yourself. And as my handout indicates, there are 3 levels of self-esteem. There's low, low, low. And I would say if I had to characterize a low self-esteemer, and again, it has nothing to do with money, a low self-esteemer blames everybody for his or her situation. They take absolutely no responsibility for what is going on in their lives.
Oh my God,
not their fault. Huh? Yes? Did I get a question?
I don't think so. I think that may have been an oops. So go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. They don't take responsibility for anything that's happening. It's always somebody else's fault. Whereas, and low self-esteemers don't take a lot of risk. They're safe. But I think the defining thing in a low self-esteemer is that that person does not take responsibility for what is happening. It's always somebody else's fault. On the other hand, a high self-esteemer takes responsibility. They recognize that there may be factors, but they know that they can impact what happens. And then you have those middle of the roaders. And I would say that self-esteem starts at early childhood. And even, I've met lots of older people, and I'm 72, but I've met people even older who have low self-esteem. They may have had wonderful careers, but you kind of revert back. So for me, self-esteem is something that you work on every single day. I work on mine every single day, especially during these times when you can't go anyplace, you don't see anybody, you're not talking. So you have to do something, know how to work on yourself. If you don't, these will be very depressing times because you can't socialize. Am I right?
Yeah.
So you have to know how to take care of yourself at all times. So if you rated your level of self-esteem on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you fall? At 72, I'm between a 7 and an 8 on any given day. I've never been a 10. Never, even, huh?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Daisy. I was just saying, when I was looking at that handout, I find myself kind of in between that mid to high range. So I'm probably like a 6 or 7 on my level.
Yeah, me too. Because that's just how it is. Now there are some people who are at the high end and they stay at the high end, but they had a lot of nourishment early on, and it just developed and developed and developed. But most of us waver in between. I would say most of us regular people waver in between. So I have outlined on the handout, I have 8. Actually, you have 7 strategies. I have 8 that I'm just going to run through. And all I want you to do is think about them. Just think about it. In order to get your level of self-esteem where you want it, I believe that you must become aware of your past programming. You have to understand how you got where you are today. And even though I am 72 years old, my early childhood had a lot to do with my level of self-esteem. In my early childhood, I grew up in Quincy, Florida, which was at a time and even today, a racist society. In the South, in the country, I lived in the country on a dirt road. We did not have indoor plumbing, a bathroom, outhouse. We lived in the country. And when I went to, and when I came along, we picked tobacco. You know, tobacco, nobody picks tobacco these days. And you knew the children who picked tobacco because when we returned to school, after our summer vacations, the tips of our fingers would be black from tobacco juice. So the children who lived in the city and did not pick tobacco, they teased us. They knew we were poor. They knew we were from the sticks of Quincy, Florida. And of course, that impacted my view of myself. Even though I had supportive people around me, that still impacted how I saw myself. So I had to work on a lot of stuff. So when you really look at what is happening during the early childhood, and you start tracing it, you can kind of see how that may have an impact of how you view yourself. And some of us have to overcome a lot more obstacles than others. So the first thing you do is to think about, how did you get this way? What experiences helped to shape your level of self-esteem? Were they positive or were they negative? I had many positives, but I also had a lot of negatives, not just from Quincy, Florida, but even from high school and junior high school especially. When I grew up, I was considered tall at the time, 5'6". That was considered tall, skinny, and I had bow legs and big eyes. So when I went to junior high and high school, I got a lot of teasing because I was tall, skinny, and you know what they called me? Who remembers the old cartoon? You may not, this is before your time, but have you ever heard of the old cartoon, Popeye the Sailor Man?
Oh, did they call you Olive Oil?
They called me Olive Oil. Some called me Olive Oil, and others called me Popeye. My oldest brother affectionately called me Olive Oil. He was just being nice and letting me know how he cared for me, teasing me. But that had an impact on me. So you want to think about, how did you get this way? Where's your level? And how did you get this way? And once you come to grips with your past programming, then you can kind of figure out, now, where do I go from here? Where do I go from here? I did not start actively working on even though I had a master's degree in business administration, went to college on a scholarship, went to graduate school. I did not start working on my level of self-esteem until I was in my 30s. And I started then because I was a workshop junkie. I loved going to workshops and seminars. Yep. And I would sit in the back of the room and I would say, oh, I wish I could do that. And then one day I stopped wishing and decided I was going to learn how to do that. But I didn't have the confidence to stand up in front of people and talk. I didn't have the confidence to sit in a classroom and talk. And that's when I stepped back and started looking at me and started working on my self-esteem. And so how do you work on it? Well, the first thing you do is, the second thing in terms of, once you become aware of your programming, you got to get to know yourself. The real you. The you who is separate and apart from what you do. That's not defined by a label. Right. I'm a wife, I am a mother, I'm a secretary, I'm a Christian. Those are labels. It's the real you. Who are you inside? Separate and apart from what you do.
Daisy, if I may jump in for a second. I was talking about this with a friend today, that during this time of COVID, when we're all isolated and we're living by ourselves. You know, I live by myself. I'm single and I live by myself.
Me too.
I don't even have a pet. So at this time, I have really gotten in touch with who I am, at what matters to me and what is at the core of who I am.
Exactly.
And I hope that others can take this opportunity when so much gets stripped away from us, to take this opportunity to really see ourselves,
right,
and find out who we are at the core.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And I live alone too. And I am so comfortable living alone, but I'm used to it. But you do a lot of retrospect, to figure out what do you really want? And that's what you have to look at. What do I want? What do I really want? Which is a heavy question. Because most of us, especially women with children, do not take the time to answer, what do I want? Not what other people want for me, but what do I really want? And then the third question is, what do I value? What's important? What's really important? And when you identify what's really important to you, the question becomes, does my behavior reflect what's important to me? For example, one of the things that's important to me right now is self-sufficiency. Remaining self-sufficient as I grow older. That's important to me. So the question, does my behavior reflect that? Absolutely. I read a lot, I work out a lot, I do a lot of introspection. Is it introspection? Is that the word I'm looking for? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's what's important. If you say education is important to you, then what are you doing to advance that? If you say your children are important to you, then what are you doing? How does your behavior reflect that? And just signing up for this Career Readiness for Women program shows that this is important to you. Being a good parent is important. Just the mere fact that you signed up for the program says that's important. Another thing that's important for me is financial freedom. So, does my behavior reflect that? And these are the things you ask yourself. When I identify my values, is my behavior consistent with my values? Does that make sense?
It does to me. Does anybody else want to chime in on that?
Makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, okay. And then the other question is a really heavy duty question. That question is, why am I here? Your purpose. We all have a purpose. Many people do not know their purpose. And I am telling you all, once you know your purpose, it drives you. Even if you want to get away from it, it drives you. But that's a question that a lot of people cannot answer. It's what drives me? Why am I here? And for those of you who are on this Zoom meeting, if you want a copy of if you want a workbook of my latest book, which is Z, send me an email and I will send you the link or the PDF file of the workbook. And in the workbook, you will be able to just write down the thing in the blanks on the things I'm talking about. So you want to understand your purpose. That is the first step in developing good self-esteem, is get to know yourself. In the workbook, I believe I have certain questions you can ask yourself when it comes to how do you define your purpose? How do you find it? Some of the things that I'm going to read to you from one of my books, Z. To find your purpose, start keeping a daily or a weekly journal. Read books and articles on your mission, purpose, vocation, or calling. Talk to people who you admire, about how they determine their purpose. Write down what you see as your unique talents and strength and interests and strengths. Listen to what your heart is telling you about why you are here. Because once you determine why you are here, everything, honestly, becomes a lot clearer. The third thing you want to do when it comes to developing self-esteem is work on your attitude. Attitude is everything. It drives you just as everything else drives you. It is your state of mind. It is in the way you move, in the way you walk, in your thoughts and your talk. And when you're paying attention to your attitude, I want you to jot down some of the messages that you give to yourself. What are some negative messages that you give to yourself? And then how can you rewrite those messages to make them a positive message? In other words, you want to reframe the messages. The next thing you want to do in terms of self-esteem is you want to start engaging in self-esteem building activities. For example, can you think of any self-esteem building activities?
I have one that I have chosen for myself.
What is that?
Well, I had shared with everybody earlier, Daisy, just to catch you up a little bit. I grew up with a happy, pretty positive self-esteem. And then when I got married, I found myself in a rather dark, abusive place. And as my marriage fell apart, I came to the place where I felt like I had no value and I had no worth and that I had no power. And, so some of the tools to build myself up was just a declaration that I said to myself every morning, you know, I am this, I am this, I am this, and all of these lists of things. And then I said it to myself again at night when I would go to sleep. And if something really got me upset or feeling bad about myself during the middle of the day, I would repeat that. So it was my declaration of who I am and where my value and where my worth comes. And it took me a couple of years. But after that couple of years of that exercise, I realized, and it was kind of fun, the day when it hit me, I'm like, hey, I don't need to say that to myself anymore. I really believe it.
Right. And I call that is the number one activity that I use. I refer to them as affirmations, which I will mention again later on. But exactly. And after a while, you have to do it morning, noon, and night. And as you said, when you find yourself in a dark place, you just start chanting over and over and over. I am this, I am that, I am lovable, I am loving, I am loved. And they're called affirmations, repeated instructions to the subconscious mind. But you're absolutely right. Well, are there any other activities that anybody else can think of? Okay, well, the one that I use every day, every single day, is I exercise. I walk every single day. And on the days I don't walk, I am dancing. Today is my first anniversary of becoming a licensed Zumba instructor. Listen, I am pretty sure I was the oldest at 71 person licensed in this area to teach Zumba. And before I did that, I didn't do Zumba. I just walked. I've always exercised, which is my self-esteem building activity. But I discovered Zumba around June or July of last year because I was trying to find a place to exercise free who took the senior discount. Found the Zumba studio out on Fulville Road. Went out there 3 or 4 times and was hooked and decided, oh, I can teach this. Found me a class. I am not a dancer. took the class, got my license, and I was told that the average instructor, it would take us about 6 months before we are really ready to teach the class, right? I got my license on a Saturday. By Monday, I had already sent out, I'd already made two in-person visits announcing myself as a Zumba Gold instructor. I also found a specialty that few people do in this area, which is I teach chair Zumba. So if you want to get an idea of what I do, just Google me, Daisy's Chair Zumba with Daisy, or Get Fit with Daisy, and you will stumble upon my YouTube channel where I teach Zumba. So that was a self-esteem builder for me. For me as a non-dancer to decide that I can do this. And I exercise as a self-esteem building activity. I also found that learning a new skill raises your self-esteem. The new skill that I picked up since COVID-19 has been how to use social media. I'm trying to develop digital footprints. So I've had to learn a lot of stuff. I've had to learn how to make YouTube videos. I've had to learn how to do videos. I've had to learn how to post stuff, which is a learning curve for me. And again, that raises my self-esteem. So you want to find, yes.
Were you successful, like with the first time that you tried any of those things?
No, but you know what? You know what, Marlene? I said, I know more than they know. When I started teaching, doing workshops and seminars, I would put about my affirmations. I kept affirming. I know more than they know. And then with my Zumba, with my chair Zumba, I worried about messing up. But they don't know I messed up unless I announce that I messed up. All my audience sees is this older woman with gray hair doing this fantastic chair Zumba class. And what builds my self-esteem even more, I cannot tell you how gratifying it is when I get an email from somebody or a comment from somebody saying, thank you so much. I am 80 years old and now I know the importance of moving. I can move right here in my chair. So no, the first time, you write it off as experience and it just simply raises you higher and higher, your level of self-esteem. So you want to get the attitude, engage in self-esteem building activities. The next thing you want to do, and this is so important, that you manage sources that can lower your self-esteem. Like what?
Like an abusive husband.
Exactly. Non-supportive friends, right?
Right.
And the thing about it is that sometimes the people who can lower your self-esteem will be family and friends. So you have to learn how to manage those sources and stay away from those kinds of relationships. And sometimes you do that assertively by letting them know that you are offended. And if that doesn't work, you have to learn how to walk away. Don't allow anyone in your inner circle that lowers your level of self-esteem. You have to let them go. So you want to look at your inner circle and you want to say, who builds me up and who tears me down? Who makes fun of me? And who supports me, whatever I do? Which brings me to the next one, which is number 6 on your page, is you want to develop empowering personal relationships. So you want to look at your inner circle and you want to list the people in your circle who love you. I mean, the people that's closest to you. And you have to recognize that not everyone is healthy enough to have a front row seat in your life. Whether it's a husband, a mother, or a father, or a sister, or brother. Everyone is not healthy enough to be in your inner circle. And so you let them go. And so what I want you to do after this, I want you to think about, make a list of all the people you are around every day. But many of us now, it's not very many people. But you still talk to them over the telephone or do a Zoom meeting with them. Who in your inner circle have to go? And then you have to learn how to let them go. The next thing, which is what we talked about, is you want to start affirming daily. You refer to them as declarations. I refer to them as affirmations. You can build your self-esteem by changing your belief system, by changing your self-talk, what you say to yourself. And we talk to ourselves all the time. The mind is rarely blamed. There's always chatter, chatter, chatter. If you sat quietly for 20 seconds, what would you think about?
For me, it kind of depends on the time of day. When I first wake up, I tend to be the most positive. I have music that I listen to at night that feeds me. And so when I'm going to sleep, I wake up with that positive vibe. And so, but if I've had a bad experience or a negative experience, well then and that self-talk I'm finding is so important, because sometimes that lingers. You know, I had a phone conversation that doesn't go the way I want it to go. Sometimes it's 20, 30 minutes later, I'm still replaying that in my mind. Trying to take back words I said or trying to say something different. So I kind of depends.
Yeah, and that's why you have to even think about, watch what you listen to on the TV. I don't watch news. I read it. But I can't let my mind, because there's so much negative stuff out there. You have to really be careful, because sometimes it can be overwhelming. And you're right, it depends on what's going on. But if you sat quietly and try to block all thoughts out, it's very difficult to spend 20 seconds with a blank mind, unless you've trained yourself through meditation to block out. Does that make sense? So you want to make sure that with those affirmations, when there's that time in there, you start repeating those affirmations or declarations over and over again. I am loving. I am lovable. I am loved. I am solely responsible for my own life and well-being. I am unique. I am confident. I am interesting. I love who I am, and I feel good about myself. And with me and my Zumba, I love teaching my Zumba classes. I love sitting in my chair dancing. I'm good at it. I may not be, but if I keep telling myself the same thing over and over and over again, what happens? The mind is a funny thing. It believes anything you tell it repeatedly. It does not know the difference between the truth and a lie. It just acts on what you put there. Does that make sense?
It's like the old computer, garbage in, garbage out.
Yep. So you just have to watch what you're putting in. And with affirmations, I use them. I don't use them as much as I used to when I was trying to develop as a speaker, as a trainer. But I can tell you that was the number one thing that helped me. I kept saying, I am special. I am special. As a matter of fact, I am extra special. At the time when I started my company, my speaking business, I could not speak in front of people. I was petrified. And I had an affirmation that I said over and over and over again. I would say, I love speaking in front of groups. The larger, the better. That wasn't true. But because the subconscious mind believes anything you tell it repeatedly, after a while, you begin to enjoy. It's like my dancing. The more I do it, and I do it over and over and over again, and I make videos. And what a lot of times people don't understand is that when I do a video, it takes me hours. Because once I cut it, then I've got to go back through and edit it. So you have to keep telling yourself that I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And then the final thing that I have for today, which we'll pick up, I guess, on Thursday, we're doing setting goals.
Yes.
That is a huge self-esteem building strategy, setting goals. And that's where we will pick up on Thursday. I will walk you through the guidelines for setting goals. And what I want you to do is just think about, what do you want? Setting your goals goes back to the question, what do I want? And so what I'd like for you to do is, before Thursday, look at the question. I want you to write down all the things you want, and then put them and prioritize them. What's your top 5 that you really, really, really want?
So Daisy, yes. Are you talking about like character traits or physical things or job related? Or
yes, job related, the whole spectrum. Okay. Social, job related, personal. For example, the goal may be, as an example, I want to lose 10 pounds. The goal my goal is I want to have at least, right now I have about 200 subscribers on my YouTube. I want at least 500 subscribers. That's a goal. Mm-hmm. 500 subscribers. That's what I want. Then I have to put that into a goal. Okay. What I want and by when.